There's a player about to win his 4th MVP in 5 years, Shohei Ohtani, an anomaly. In MLB's 149-year history, he's one of just 2 players with the ability to be one of the greatest hitters of all time while being a pitcher. A legitimate generational legend. We could go through the best players today or the best players 100 years ago, and what you'd realize is what he's doing isn't just ridiculous, it is generational. So, I brought the challenge upon myself to spend well over 100 hours calculating data, using Excel sheets, statistics, overloading my brain to the point I couldn't think anymore, only to find the closest player to Shohei Ohtani right now. Some of the players that probably come to mind would be Elly De La Cruz, Bobby Witt Jr., or maybe Aaron Judge. Nobody is truly as valuable as Ohtani because nobody's able to do what he's doing, but I pondered this question for years, and I'm sure you have too. A guy who is 6'3", capable of stealing more than 50 bases while hitting over 50 home runs, which is something we have never seen until Shohei Ohtani. Let alone the fact in the midst of all of this, he's pitched 26% better than the average pitcher. He's not only been voted for every major award imaginable, but Ohtani also started a copycat revolution among players across the sport. Players are being drafted into MLB as two-way athletes, but none of them have been able to play two ways like him or stick to it. And because he is a pitcher and a hitter, I had to do this video a little bit differently. I analyzed Ohtani's hitting and pitching metrics to identify the pitcher and hitter most similar to him. And I'll be honest, I never thought that I would actually get the answer to this question, and it's probably because I never thought I would be crazy enough to actually try to figure this out, but here I am. And the 2 most similar players to Shohei Ohtani will shock you. But before diving into the data, do you know what Shohei Ohtani most definitely uses to save money after being robbed of $17 million? Coupert. 9 million people use Coupert, including that rich Mr. Krabs type relative that is in your family, because it's a free extension. It saves you money on every online purchase. Coupert, they work with over 76,000 retailers to give pure cash back and has badass coupons for over 3 million sites. Thanks to Coupert, I saved over $50 on this Red Sox jersey, and I was able to buy a Red Sox hat because of that money I saved. But what I've found is that my favorite feature is the price comparison service, which keeps me informed about the quality options I have for the right price. It works on nearly every major browser, helping every fan and every bargain hunter like yourself save online. Unlike their dishonest competitor, Honey, Coupert has refused to steal tracking links from their customers and is fully transparent with all of their users. Basically, to be frank with you, they're not run by a bunch of supervillains, and they prove that with their near-perfect Trustpilot score. Just like my imaginary financial advisor says, smarter shoppers use Coupert, so go join millions of people, install Coupert today using the link in today's description to save money. So, what metrics am I going to be using to figure this out? Well, as a hitter, there are a few categories that rise above all. For one, how powerful of a hitter are you? Across the league in 2025, we saw guys like Cal Raleigh, Aaron Judge, and of course Ohtani lead the league in home runs. To measure the statistics of similarity, we'll be using isolated power, also known as ISO. It's defined by Fangraphs as the measure of a hitter's raw power and tells you how often a player hits for extra base hits like this one.
This is where he goes, right? That ball's a little...
But my prediction for the guy who would be most similar to his power was Aaron Judge.
For Judge, Shohei Ohtani!
Judge and Ohtani are unquestionably the best power hitters in baseball and will go down as some of the greatest of all time. However, the shocking part is Judge was actually number 2 on the list in the power category. The other guy that I thought of was slugger Pete Alonso.
Alonso, an opposite field home run!
Yet, number 1 most similar was neither of them. The most similar power hitter to Shohei is Kyle Schwarber, one of the only players in the league who hits over 50 home runs like Shohei does. Also on this list, we see Matt Olson, Vlad Jr., and Pete Alonso leading the top 3. By far, the most shocking result about this is Aaron Judge down the list at 20 with 84%. But overall, the expected home run hitters are on this list. Though, being a great hitter isn't all about the homers.
Hey!
To be elite, strong plate discipline goes a long way. It's about swinging at things in the zone, not outside of it. So to know how good his plate discipline is, I took his walk rate and subtracted it with his strikeout percentage. The hitter closest to his plate discipline was Aaron Judge at a 98% similarity rating. Seeing these two hitters constantly interlinked isn't a surprise, but the next few results came out a lot different. Next brings me to Shohei's speed. Year in, year out, he's flying around the bases and he's stealing a record amount of them. To be exact, he's stolen 149 since 2021. And my way of measuring the closest player to his speed statistically is to look at how many stolen bases he gets per 600 plate appearances. And of course, it is very important to remember that in 2024, his stolen bases were inflated at 54, largely because he was strictly a designated hitter. Being a DH, he had less limits on what he could do physically with his body, but this season, we saw his number drop to just 20 bags stolen. This is of course because he needs to stay healthy, especially to stay on the mound as a starting pitcher all year long. Regardless, his speed data leaves him closest to Phillies infielder Trey Turner.
Turner running on a 3-0 pitch, and he's on.
Statistically speaking, Turner's speed is 98.4%, similar to Ohtani's. The player directly below him was Pirates shortstop Oneil Cruz, who was just 1.2% below Turner. They were the only two who really came close to matching Ohtani's speed statistics.
The team leader in stolen bases by a pretty wide margin. There he goes.
We've so far discussed homers, plate discipline, speed, but how about batted ball profile? Which is simply defined as the percentage a player's hits goes up into the sky with a fly ball. This is important because it really determines how often a hitter is putting the ball into a solid area of play. And the most similar player to him isn't just one person, it is actually a three-way tie between different players. You'll see this list, you'll see Schwarber, Santander, and Adolis Garcia are all at the top. Frequently, these guys tend to put the ball in the air a lot more than putting it onto the ground.
Coming from Thompson. And Otani torches one, tosses the bat, and watches it fly!
Our next metric is measuring dominance. How can you measure how dominant a hitter is? Well, there's no perfect way to do that, but there is a statistic called WAR. WAR is defined as something that measures the total value of a player, specifically how many wins he's worth. It's not perfect, but it's a useful stat. Over the last several seasons, Otani, Judge, Betts, Soto, and Witt Jr. lead in the category WAR. But when we measure a player's WAR per 600 plate appearances, we find that Astros slugger Yordan Alvarez is the most similar hitter to him WAR-wise at 96.4% similarity rating. Yordan is a player that hits over 30 home runs in every healthy season of his.
Alvarez launches deep right field, and this one is gone, and the Astros walk them off in Game 1.
You'll notice the following few hitters are Freddie Freeman, Juan Soto, Jose Ramirez, and Acuna Jr., all of whom are star hitters, sitting around with a 90% similarity rating in this statistic. But there are a few major ones we've yet to go over, especially batting average.
There's an absolute take!
Batting average is defined as the number of hits you get, divided by the number of at-bats you have. It's one of the easiest indicators to how often you get hits that put you on the base. Since 2021, Ohtani's batting average is about 285, which is roughly 35 points ahead of the league average. In this calculation, to get the most similar score, I also added on base percentage as a factor into this, which is self-explanatory, a percentage that measures how often a guy gets onto base. Ohtani's OBP since 2021 is 383, over 60 points above the league average. When we combine these two stats for a similarity score, we find Jose Ramirez and Mookie Betts are tied for first, with Bryce Harper and Vlad Jr. directly behind them. All of these guys are at the top of the league in getting onto base, but we have one more hitting metric left before reviewing who the most similar hitter to Shohei Ohtani is according to data. The final metric is, of course, a player's clutchness.
Otani on a center cut fastball.
Ohtani is one of the clutchest players in baseball, and I'm not specifically referencing big moments. I'm talking about day-to-day when runners are in scoring position. Ohtani is almost always able to come through for the Dodgers to advance runners. To determine the most similar player to him in this category, I needed to gather two key metrics. One of the stats going into this are RBIs, which is simply the amount of runs a player has batted in. Along with RBIs, I measured each hitter's batting average with runners in scoring position. The results, well, over 14 of them had a similarity rating over 90, but number 1 on the list was third baseman Nolan Arenado, and Austin Riley sitting right behind him. If I was making this video a year from now, Arenado almost certainly wouldn't be in the top 3 due to the rapid regression he's been facing for years. Still, data says that he is the most similar player to Ohtani's clutch.
Nolan Arenado says, "Hello, Phoenix."
So now, I had all the data I needed to combine who the most similar hitter to Shohei Ohtani is. My way of doing this was to average the 7 hitting skills we looked at, being power, speed, discipline, fly ball percentage, WAR, batting average, and RBIs. And I finally got the answer we were looking for. Of course, remember, we still have an entire segment this video to find the most similar pitcher to Ohtani. But here are the results for the hitters. The closest hitter to Ohtani is not any of these 24 athletes. We will start at the runner-ups, who are both tied with the same score. Acuna has the speed, dominance, and batted ball skills to be compared to Ohtani, but hasn't quite had the same data power-wise as the next guy up, which of course is Aaron Judge. While he ranked high in every metric to Ohtani, he doesn't have the speed or stolen bases to be ranked higher. You'll see Bryce Harper at number 4 and Mookie Betts at number 5, 2 seasoned veterans who lacked in just a few metrics. The most interesting part of this list is that almost everyone's similarity score went down drastically due to having such lower speed data than Ohtani. But who actually is number 1? Well, we narrowed the search for the closest hitter to Ohtani down to 1, and that player is Jose Ramirez, the slugging third baseman.
Ramirez on the ground, it's fair! Into the corner it goes!
The franchise cornerstone in Cleveland makes so much sense at number 1. He steals a lot of bases, he hits a good amount of home runs, he has similar batting averages to Ohtani, accumulates high amounts of WAR yearly, is one of the clutchest players in baseball, and of course, has strong plate discipline. These features are what make Shohei Ohtani an anomaly, and that's something not many hitters have. Going through the similarities, Ramirez was extremely strong in every metric but power, where he was graded the lowest out of the top 10. It was his bat skills, it was his clutch that was able to secure this spot for number 1. But let's not forget, Ramirez and Ohtani are still extremely different players. Ramirez strikes out half as much as Ohtani, on average hitting 20 home runs less than Ohtani. But they truly do have key similarities that, brought them to first on this list.
Oh my goodness! Shohei Ohtani!
But what about the pitcher Shohei Ohtani? There is literally an entire half of him that we have yet to analyze and put into spreadsheets, so let's do it.
Ohtani gets him on 3 pitches.
First of all, what do we know about Shohei the pitcher? Well, of course his durability is constantly a question mark as a two-way player, especially one who's already gone through 2 Tommy John surgeries. But we also know he's a well above average pitcher when healthy who can pitch in big moments. To be able to thrive in this league as a big moment pitcher, you need a strong strikeout ability. Since 2021, Ohtani has a strikeout rate higher than 30%, putting him way above a lot of pitchers. The top option in similarity prevailed to be Chris Sale, one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Finish for Chris Sale.
Chris Sale pitching himself into the Hall of Fame.
He is a lock for the Cy Young Award.
This is so interesting to me because Sale and Ohtani are very different pitchers. Comparing the windups of the two players, the fastball differences, and even the pitches they use to strike batters out. Right behind Sale is Sonny Gray and righty Corbin Burnes. Again, very different pitchers, but all of whom have their swing and miss stuff, whether it's Ohtani's splitter, Burnes' cutter, or Gray's curveball.
Ohtani deal, and a swing and a miss. Contreras.
Our second component is extremely important to Ohtani's game as a pitcher, which is control. He's one of the best in the game at not walking batters, constantly throwing strikes to keep him efficient. A guy who uses command is able to put his pitches exactly where he wants them, and that's why these 4 pitchers are all tied in this metric. Max Fried, Pablo Lopez, Yu Darvish, and Max Scherzer. Each of them rely on first pitch strikes, coming back to their elite command. thriving in 0-2 and 1-2 counts, and they always find themselves winning. The difference between them comes in how they paint their pitches. Ohtani and Scherzer need their fastball to command, whereas Fried and Lopez rely on a sinker-cutter combo. All of whom relate to Ohtani being in the top 12% league-wide in contact allowed. Which brings me to our next statistic, which is ground ball tendency. Shohei is amazing at getting swing and misses rather than relying on the ground ball. So I measured his ground ball percentage and found that Sandy Alcantara and Corbin Burnes nearly have the same ground ball percentage as him. But for Ohtani, it's not necessarily his skill that's hindered him, it is his durability, his health. To find the closest pitcher to Shohei Ohtani, this metric might be more important than any other. Since 2021, he's averaged roughly 121 innings per season. In his case, injuries are justifiable due to how much he's on the field versus every other pitcher. Despite that disadvantage, his availability matches the likes of Charlie Morton, Jose Barrios, and Kyle Gibson. One thing you'll notice is that these are not elite pitchers whatsoever. Oftentimes, when you're constantly battling to stay onto the mound, you're not at your peak, your arm is not fresh, and that has somewhat been the case with Ohtani the pitcher. I will say though that fans have tried to paint this image that Ohtani's a bad pitcher, which is of course just lunacy. That's not true at all. One statistic that'll prove that is WAR. It's the same concept for pitchers as it was for hitters, but if you don't remember, WAR measures the amount of value a player brings to the game. We'll call this metric dominance.
He hits 2 home runs and reaches base 9 times, which is 3 more than anybody ever had in a World Series game. Shohei Ohtani, for the first time, pitches in the Fall Classic.
Strictly as a pitcher, his WAR is roughly 4.5 per 200 innings. Looking at this list, we see Shane McClanahan and Chris Sale at the top, and this makes perfect sense to me. When you think about those two and Ohtani, you'll understand that they have all had a combined 5 Tommy John surgeries on their elbows. Yet they are all top talent in the league when pitching. It's just about staying on the mound. So that's that, but these next few statistics will truly narrow down the search for the closest pitcher to Shohei Ohtani. And what better to review than the most important stat for a pitcher, arguably, ERA. Also known as earned run average, defined as a stat that measures how many earned runs a pitcher allows per 9 innings pitched. In Ohtani's case, his ERA is just above a 3, which is very good. It means if he were to pitch a 9-inning game tomorrow, he'd only allow 3 runs on average. The players who relate closest to a similarity score are Burnes, Wheeler, Cole, and Fried. Funny enough, our next category, batting average given up with runners in scoring position, is an identical top 5 list. I don't need to explain it again, these guys are seasoned veteran stars. So finally, we have one more area to cover, and that is called FIP. In my opinion, it's the most underrated pitching stat that most fans overlook, but it truly judges how good a pitcher is. Basically, FIP is what a pitcher's ERA would be if defense was not involved. So let's say you're pitching for soft contact. You're supposed to be getting routine outs, but your defense sucks, leading to the stat sheet looking a lot worse for you than it actually was. Well, this stat is one of the best for telling who the closest pitcher to Ohtani really is. Ohtani's FIP was a 312, which is nearly identical to the Braves' Spencer Strider and the Diamondbacks' Corbin Burnes. This means I had finally gathered enough evidence, enough data to determine the closest pitcher to Ohtani. When we factor in the swing and miss stuff, ground ball frequency, being able to pound the strike zone and provide overall value as a pitcher, we find that the Braves' Spencer Strider is the most alike to the pitcher Shohei Ohtani.
He struck him out. 13 for number 99.
Even though Strider only ranked number 1 in a single statistic, this comparison makes way too much sense. They both have an elite fastball, sitting at 97 to 99 miles per hour, with exceptional induced vertical break, basically meaning the pitch fools hitters at an elite level. It moves in weird ways. If the fastball isn't working, they both turn to their devastating late-breaking slider. Each of them have over 50% whiff rates on the pitch. It is their go-to swing and miss. Not to mention, it is extremely rare to have a pitcher like these two that throws a fastball or a slider over 90% of the time. They are both in the 99th percentile of strikeout ability. So in case you were wondering who the closest two players to Shohei Ohtani are, according to data, it's Guardians third baseman Jose Ramirez and Braves pitcher Spencer Strider. Thank you so much for watching. I put a lot of effort into this one, and you going all the way through this video helps me a ton. I'm actively writing more videos just like this one, so if you did enjoy, please subscribe. But anyways, here's another one of my videos that I really do think you'll like a lot, so click on it if you are interested. If not, thanks for watching.